Ancient calendar prophecies, why the Olmec and Khmer foresaw cataclysms, unearthing why the Olmec and Khmer, separated by millennia and continents, independently encoded cataclysmic prophecies into their complex calendars challenges our understanding of ancient foresight. We're dissecting their advanced astronomical observations and cyclical worldviews, revealing how these civilizations anticipated global shifts that science is only now beginning to comprehend. The unbelievable coincidence. Prepare to have your mind blown to ancient civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and centuries. The Olmec and the Khmer independently predicted cataclysms so accurately, it defies all logic. What shocking secret did their calendars hold that modern science is just now catching up to? The truth will leave you questioning everything. Ancient civilizations operated under a fundamentally different understanding of time than we do today. Where modern societies view history as a straight line moving endlessly forward, cultures like the Olmec of Mesoamerica and the Khmer of Southeast Asia saw time as something circular, returning again and again to familiar patterns. This wasn't mysticism for its own sake, it was a framework built on centuries of careful observation, and within that framework, they encoded warnings about catastrophic events they believed would inevitably recur. The Olmec civilization emerged around 1500 BCE in the tropical lowlands of south-central Mexico, making them one of the earliest major civilizations in Mesoamerica. They're often called the mother culture of the region because so many later societies, including the Maya and Aztec, built upon their intellectual foundations. Among their most significant contributions was the development of the Long Count calendar, a system designed not just to track days, but to measure vast stretches of time spanning thousands of years. What made the Olmec approach remarkable was its cyclical structure. Time wasn't simply counted, it was organized into nested cycles of increasing size. Days accumulated into months, months into years, years into larger periods called kaitons and buctons. A single bucton lasted approximately 394 years, and the Olmec tracked multiple buctons as part of their cosmological framework. This wasn't arbitrary, it reflected a worldview in which events repeated themselves according to cosmic rhythms. The Olmec left behind carved monuments and jade artifacts bearing complex glyphs, many of which reference astronomical phenomena. Researchers have identified depictions of celestial events, including what appear to be solar eclipses and planetary alignments. More intriguingly, some carvings seem to mark periods of upheaval, floods, droughts, and what scholars interpret as societal collapse. The Olmec heartland itself experienced dramatic environmental changes during their civilization's decline, including shifts in river courses and flooding patterns. Whether they predicted these specific events or simply recorded cyclical patterns they expected to repeat remains debated, but the connection between their calendar system and catastrophic change is unmistakable. Their astronomical sophistication was considerable. The Olmec tracked the movements of Venus with remarkable precision, understanding its 584-day synodic cycle and its relationship to solar years. They recognized that 5 Venus cycles aligned almost perfectly with 8 solar years. This kind of observation required generations of record-keeping and a cultural commitment to understanding celestial mechanics that rivals anything in the ancient world. Half a world away and more than 1,000 years later, the Khmer Empire rose to prominence in Southeast Asia. At its height between the 9th and 13th centuries, it controlled much of what is now Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. The Khmer built Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument ever constructed, and they did so with astronomical precision that still astonishes researchers today. Angkor Wat wasn't just a temple, it was a cosmic diagram rendered in stone. The entire complex aligns with the spring equinox so precisely that on that day, the sun rises directly over the central tower when viewed from the western entrance. The temple's dimensions encode astronomical numbers, including the 108 figures lining the causeway, a number sacred across Hindu and Buddhist traditions that relates to the distance between Earth and the sun measured in solar diameters. The Khmer operated under a calendar system inherited from Indian traditions but adapted to their own astronomical observations. They tracked cycles of creation and destruction that span millions of years, organizing time into yugas, vast ages during which the universe progresses through periods of flourishing and decline. The current age, according to this framework, is the Kali Yuga, an era of degradation that will eventually end in catastrophic transformation before the cycle begins anew. This wasn't abstract philosophy for the Khmer. Their historical inscriptions record periods of drought, flood, and political collapse, often linking these events to astrological conditions. The civilization's eventual decline in the 15th century coincided with severe droughts, followed by catastrophic monsoon flooding that damaged the sophisticated water management systems sustaining Angkor. Modern studies using tree ring data and sediment analysis have confirmed these climate shifts occurred exactly when Khmer records suggested they would become problematic. The parallels between these two civilizations separated by oceans and centuries are striking. Both developed calendar systems organized around nested cycles of varying lengths. Both connected astronomical observations to predictions about earthly events. Both encoded in their monuments and records a fundamental belief that catastrophic change was not random, but patterned, something that could be anticipated by those who understood the cycles. Modern science has begun to validate certain aspects of this cyclical thinking, though not in the mystical sense. We now understand that Earth's climate operates on multiple overlapping cycles. Milankovitch cycles, caused by variations in Earth's orbit and axial tilt, drive ice ages over periods of tens of thousands of years. Solar activity fluctuates over roughly 11-year cycles, affecting everything from weather patterns to radio communications. El Niño and La Niña events recur every few years, dramatically affecting rainfall and temperature across the Pacific. Geological records show that catastrophic events do repeat. Major volcanic eruptions, while unpredictable in timing, occur at relatively regular intervals when viewed over millennia. Seismic activity along fault lines accumulates stress that eventually releases in earthquakes, creating patterns observable over centuries of records. Even asteroid impacts, while rare, follow statistical distributions that make their eventual occurrence a certainty rather than a possibility. The Olmec and Khmer couldn't have known the scientific mechanisms behind these patterns, but they didn't need to. What they had was something equally valuable: centuries of accumulated observation. Generation after generation recorded celestial positions, weather patterns, flood levels, and harvest yields. Over time, patterns emerged. Droughts came after certain stellar configurations. Floods followed particular planetary alignments. Societies rose and fell in rhythms that seemed connected to these cosmic movements. This wasn't superstition dressed as science. It was pattern recognition operating at civilizational timescales. When modern researchers analyze Mesoamerican calendar correlations with geological events, they find that certain cycle completions do correspond to periods of increased seismic activity in the region. The mechanism may involve gravitational stresses from planetary alignments or solar activity affecting Earth's magnetic field. The science remains contested, but the correlation exists. The Khmer's water management systems were designed with cyclical drought and flood in mind. The Berets, massive reservoirs surrounding Angkor, could hold enough water to sustain the city through dry years while managing overflow during heavy monsoons. This engineering reflected an understanding that both extremes would occur and recur. When the cycles finally exceeded the system's capacity in the 15th century, the civilization's center shifted, but the knowledge embedded in there